This is the Athletes as Educators podcast. I'm your host, Angie Lewis. On this podcast, I interview current and former elite athletes who are doing extraordinary things outside of sports. You can listen to a new podcast every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Be sure to leave a review. Now it's game time.
From Cleveland, Ohio. He played overseas for 13 years, played college ball at Indiana State, has worked with Nike grassroots basketball, and currently coaches athletes and trains them on more than basketball, but life. He's really passionate about helping them understand how their work ethic, attitude, and abilities to communicate well impact their future. Jayson, thank you so much for being on the podcast.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited.
Jayson, will you please tell everyone a little more about your background and some of the places ball has taken you over the years?
Originally from Cleveland, as you mentioned, and I used to have this funny thing. It doesn't work out so much with the numbers now, but back when I was 34, it was almost like the first 17 years of my life, I never left Cleveland, or it was very regional, and the second 17 years of my life, I pretty much haven't been back. So my life is really like my early and high school years was all Cleveland. Mm-hmm. And then once I went to Terre Haute and to Indiana State to go to school, I pretty much haven't been back. I went from Terre Haute to Stockholm, Sweden, and literally all around the world from there. So I've lived in 12 countries, I've gone for 2 days on vacation or something like that. I've lived in 12 countries, which is pretty awesome for a little boy from Cleveland.
That's fascinating. Country did you love the best and why?
It's a tie. Israel and Australia. Israel, because it is literally I call it the best kept secret in the world. Because, we have our media, you get, but everything is so sensationalized. It's unbelievable. I mean, they have their problems, but so do we. So, and then at the end of the day, as an athlete, you're not in those high risk areas. You're not riding a public bus. You're not going to the open air market, so I was there during peace and during war. And at no time did I feel like I needed to be on the next plane. And then Australia it's like the 51st state. It's amazing. Their playing season is opposite of ours, and so they play during our wintertime or the same as ours, but their seasons are opposite. So right now they're dead smack in the middle of summer. So I had this like constant summer circle. It was awesome.
Pretty nice. Now, you said that you were just this little boy from Cleveland that ended up in Israel and Australia and Germany. When did you start playing ball and why?
The original, I remember being 2 or 3 years old. I remember being super young and having either the Nerf basket or probably at that time we probably couldn't afford a Nerf basket. So it was probably an old school cutout plastic milk crate. With some form of a ball that might have ranged from a ball to a pair of rolled up socks. So I know that's like totally dating myself. All your young listeners, they're not going, what is he talking about?
Yeah.
But 3 years old, but I didn't play competitively until I was in the 7th grade. And I know that totally goes against today's culture. Obviously, we work in our current culture where kids are playing on teams from, 7 and 8 years old. But yeah, I didn't play on a competitive team until I went to junior high school in 7th grade.
That is definitely rare these days.
Yeah.
And don't feel dated about the rolled up crates, man. We did it too. My brother and I did the same thing. So that's definitely a moment of nostalgia.
There you go.
So, Jayson, people are going to listen to this podcast, and within the first 5 minutes, they hear that you played all over the world. You went to Australia, that you played Division I basketball at Indiana State, and they're going to think that everything has been easy for you. Will you talk about some of the challenges that you've had personally, whether it's playing ball, whether it's balancing school? Just give them some insight into how you made it that far.
How long we got?
As long as you, Jayson, we can do a part two if necessary.
We may have to, and it's funny, as we mentioned before before we actually started recording. I'm literally in a transition where I'm getting into the speaking world and also venturing off into the writing world, where I've decided I'm going to write my first book. And I heard you say author too, so I might have to pick your brain on role reversal. I might have to interview you. But actually, a lot of my speaking experiences, like I refer to myself as an experience teller. I don't say motivational speaker or even inspirational speaker. I call myself an experience teller, and that's on purpose because I'm basically just telling my story. Like that's the only story I know. I don't know how to tell it in anybody else's eyes. And so, yes, I still look at myself as a little boy from Cleveland, Ohio. But what I found as I listen to people that I find myself attracted to as far as speakers and people that I listen to is I really appreciate when they expose their vulnerability and they show that, I'm not some perfect person that has always been the superstar on the team or has always gotten good grades or has always done anything. I found that those are the people that I'm most attracted to. And as I look back and think about things that I talk about, that's a huge part of it. I guess that was a long prequel, huh? I still didn't answer your question.
What your challenges?
For sure, on the basketball court, I had what was during our time or during my time, your typical rise. I didn't play until seventh grade. So seventh and eighth grade, I played middle school. And then I was awarded the luxury of going to a private high school up in Cleveland. Cleveland public schools are not very good. And so they worked out a tuition package where I was able to go to a school, Central Catholic High School. And I played freshman as a freshman. I played JV as a sophomore. I got some minutes as a junior, and then I was like one of the dudes when I was a senior, and that was my career. I remember being highly upset when some of my 10th graders got called up to a varsity game our sophomore year, but I didn't have that elite, outlook on life and that path where, everything was given to me. And that's it's a huge part of how I teach, and a huge part of what I talk about is the only way I know is to work hard and work smart and be disciplined and do all of the little things because I wasn't good enough to do it any other way. School wise, it was about the same. Like I would definitely consider myself a pretty smart guy. But in college, it was definitely not applicable. It was not something, and it fluctuated. And it's funny because one of my talking points when I'm talking to young players is actually I was telling you about my guy from UMKC, and while I was in Louisville, they had a kid that was on the cusp of figuring out whether he was going to be academically ineligible for the second semester. And it comes out where he was fine. But one of my talking points is, like, people used to ask me what my major was, and I used to jokingly say eligibility. And as much of a joke as that is, there was also a lot of seriousness to it because no matter how far I let my grades slip, I wasn't gonna let them slip enough to where I couldn't be able to play.
Right.
And so there was always that ground of, I don't really care. Like I'll do this, but only to this point. And I kind of don't understand how kids get themselves to a point where it's like, I'm just gonna blow it off to the point where I'm not gonna be able to play because now ultimately you're not doing what you want to do, which is play. So yeah, I've definitely had some ups and downs.
Everyone has though, and that's the point. Like people need to hear, and athletes need to hear that it's not all easy. So when you first started playing in seventh grade, were you dunking immediately, and you were able to all of everything?
I appreciate you holding in your smile while you say that. I did not dunk until my senior year of high school.
That's important for youth to hear because they think that you're supposed to start off great.
Yeah. Well, and part of mine was just size. So I had a ridiculous growth spurt, like
Okay.
ridiculous growth spurt to where I don't know, do you remember the name Earl Boykins? You remember that name?
Mm-hmm.
So that was my seventh grade through high school, that was my point guard.
Okay.
So he's notably and arguably like 5'5". Like his media guide is always 5'5", 135, somewhere in there. Well, our freshman year, we were pretty much the same height. He might have been 5'5", and I was like 5'7".
Mm-hmm.
And then after our sophomore year, I remember this, June of sophomore year, finishing school, I was like 5'9", 5'10". When I came back 2.5 months later after summer break, I was 6'4". Like I grew like 5 inches in 3 months. And then I continued to grow. So I'm younger. I started high school as a 13-year-old freshman. I started college as a 17-year-old freshman. I didn't turn 21 until December of my senior year of college.
Okay.
And so I continued to grow. So I grew through college. Like my freshman year of college is 6'6". My senior year of college is 6'7". And after college, I finally peaked out at 6'8".
Are you serious?
I am. So yeah, Duncan was not in the equation.
Well, you mentioned something as you were telling your story that's really poignant and worth discussing. You said that you had the typical route through high school, played freshman, played sophomore, got a few minutes, and then went on to play varsity.
Yeah.
But you knew that you had to work hard. When I talk to kids, I ask them, what does it take, to be a great player? And they all say work hard. And I know you've heard it time and time again. Will you clear up what it means to work hard? I'm tired of hearing it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, my definition of working hard, and this was actually kind of reiterated from one of my favorite coaches, but like working hard is one thing, and I think most people understand what work hard is, what it consists of, I think. But then more importantly, or at least equally important, is working smart. And so, you can go in there, I know there's a Michael Jordan quote, you can go in the gym and practice a shot for 8 hours the wrong way, and all you're doing is practicing the wrong shot. And so, yeah, working smart. No, like going in and being tactical and diligent and efficient on what you're doing. Like I'm just not one of those guys. Like even on a fitness workout level, I talk to people when it's, oh yeah, I went to the gym for 3 hours a day, and I'm like, for what? Like
Right.
what? Yeah, like you just wasted 2.5 hours of your day. Like I'm 30, 45 minutes and I'm out. But it's efficient and it's back to back. And so I think that's a big thing. But what I kind of get out of where you're going is just having young players understand, no, whatever you're doing, you're not working hard enough. And that's the blessing, excuse me, of what I'm able to do. I literally work with both ends of the spectrum. I work with the quote unquote non-elite kids, of which I was one of them, that, you're kind of regular kids. And then I work with, in Nike's words, the elite kids, the kids that are going to be household names in the next couple years. And what's funny is there's a huge difference in skill set, but there's not a huge difference in how hard they work or understanding what work is, because basically the elite kids have been given everything and the non-elite kids don't really know what working hard is. And so I think we're at a point where as adults, we definitely have to show them. I think we're caught in this thing right now where we're telling them,
Mm-hmm.
and they're not getting it. They're like, yeah, I can like, my soapbox can be like 12 feet tall right now.
And that's why I ask. But you know what? The truth is, Jayson, everyone I've interviewed, we've had this conversation about work hard because it drives coaches crazy.
Yeah.
It drives parents crazy. Parents are investing tons of money because they want to see their kid work hard. But like you said, if you haven't shown a kid what working hard looks like, then how do they know how hard they can go if they've never been pushed or challenged? And so, can you give a specific example of this is not working hard and this is working hard?
I mean, yeah, like I don't want to put a time to it. What I do know is, again, going into the gym. Let's just keep it at working on the on court.
Okay.
Going into the gym, or actually, let's not. I have an 8-year-old son, and he's entertaining playing basketball right now. And I think really that's kind of more just to fancy daddy's little fetish. But I tell him all the time, like he's at that Minecraft age too, where he wants to play video games as well. And so I'll ask him. They don't live with me, but I ask him, did you practice today? Did you practice basketball today? Did you practice soccer today? Because I'm not that dad that's all basketball, basketball, basketball. Did you practice anything athletically today? And he either tell me no, or a little bit, or yes. Well, did you play the video game today? And it's either no or yes.
Mm-hmm.
But, even at that early age, I'm instilling in him, you're going to be good at what you practice at and what you put your time into. So if you play Minecraft for 2 hours and you only go practice basketball or soccer for 30 minutes, then that's what you're going to get out of it. So I think again, the biggest thing is for us as adults to show, show, show. Like it has to be action. It has to be a verb. It can't be tell. It can't be expect them to know, or it can't be, the cliche of when I was your age, this is what I was like. It cannot be that. These kids don't. These kids and young people, they don't learn like that. You have to show them, and I'm blessed enough to be in this small window of opportunity where physically I can still show them. Like I can get on the court and do anything that I have my players do. But I know that that's going to wear out sometime too. So I think what's hugely important is parents, teachers, and coaches are the three main avenues of leadership and development for young people.
Yep.
Would you agree with that?
Absolutely.
Okay, well, all three of those areas are lacking. So you have parents that are upset with the teachers because they're saying you should be teaching them this and doing this, and now the teachers are upset at the parents, like, well, they're with you more than they're with us, and if you taught them some home training, then I can teach them what I want to teach them at school. And then the coaches are mad at the teachers and the parents because they're like, I just want to coach them in this sport. I don't want to do this, and we're sitting here bickering amongst the adults, and who's losing? The kids. Yeah, the kids are losing because we can't get our stuff together. And so, there's only so kids have always been kids. We were the same way. And if given that opportunity to wild out or not have a lot of discipline or whatever, we would have done it too. We just weren't allowed to. But what we're doing as adults is we're now allowing the kids to do the things that we weren't allowed to do, but then like ridiculing them and getting on them, saying they don't have discipline. So I don't think it's necessarily all the kids. I think we're just as much to blame. That was a long answer.
It's okay. It's like you needed to get that out, Jayson.
I did.
About it. No, that's not at all. Let's dive deeper into that. So you've you've played for years, coached for years, trained players. You've met a lot of parents around the country and the world.
Yep.
Your advice for a parent who has a kid who's interested in ball or another sport? A lot of parents don't know how much should they play. A lot of summer teams just practice, and in practice they're playing games, and then they're traveling every weekend. Like, where should the boundaries be set? How does a parent know?
I think it's definitely going to be relative.
Okay.
Because, for example, you may have a kid that doesn't play a whole lot. Like we're just use varsity. So say he's a younger kid, sophomore, maybe even a junior that doesn't get a lot of minutes. Mm-hmm. And, he works where he has an individual coach and he's working with his trainer or working with whatever, but you still have to implement game reps to get better. So that may be a situation where, playing in the summertime and getting those game reps may be beneficiary to that player because he doesn't necessarily get them during the season or during his high school season. I think what happens more than not now is you just got kids that are playing like AAU. It's almost sickening, and not even AAU because AAU is an organization, but just travel basketball and travel sports has become so dominant to where you got kids in the fall that are still practicing with their travel club teams, and it's high school season. And you know, in the spring, high school season isn't even over yet, and travel team has started practices. And you know, you got your God forbid circumstances. Like, God forbid these kids have practice on a Sunday, and this kid hurts himself, and now he can't finish the rest of his high school season because he hurt himself at an AAU practice.
Right.
But without even going to that extreme, I think there's hard stops and hard starts for a reason. So, you know, there rest being one of them, and just respect. Like, you know, AAU coaches have to understand that while they're playing high school ball, that's their responsibility. So respect that high school coach and let them finish their season, and then you can do what you do. So, but yeah, as a parent, it's difficult. I'm old school. You still have to have a dedicated off season because you don't get better playing games.
Will you say that again? Can you say it one more time, just in case people missed it?
You don't get better playing games. You get better having a dedicated off season. And I'm not saying that off season has to be 2.5 months or 3 months, but somewhere where you have a designated off period where I'm not playing games and I'm only attacking my weaknesses and strengthening my strengths. Like, that has to happen, because when you get into a game, you're going to do what you do, good, bad, or indifferent. Or even if it's a situation where, because they play so many games, this happens all the time. I may come in as a skill developer and we may work on something as drastic as changing your shot. Like, changing your jump shot, changing your golf swing, changing your, like, anything like that, there's going to be a huge decrease before there's any increase. And so you have to allow that time of getting used to this new mechanism, and it's not, I ain't gonna be able to hit nothing right now. You know what I mean? But because of the way games go, it's, kid will come to me Monday through Friday and we'll work on changing the jump shot, and then Saturday start playing games and comes out and misses their first 5 or 6 shots. Well, what are they going to do? They're going to revert back. Absolutely. They're going to revert back. They're not going to have enough trust in me and enough trust in this new shot. They're going to say, well, let me go back to my old shot. At least I know I can make 1 or 2, you know? And so that's my thing with the whole game thing, is like, you have to, and there's a balance, and it's a fine line, but there's a balance. You have to do development, but you also have to incorporate that into games. And I think that's where we're lost now is, I mean, there's this big thing about the European training method and how they're so skillful. It's not rocket science.
No.
They practice 5 or 6 times in comparison to 1 game.
Exactly.
And we play 5 or 6 games in comparison to 1 practice. So it's not rocket science why they're more skilled than we are. It's because that's what they do. They practice.
One thing, we could talk all day, right? There's a couple things that I really want to help parents and athletes understand. Couple things. The first piece that you already talked about is the influx of skilled developers. How does a parent know who to go to? Like, what should they look for? I've talked to some other people and they've given some advice on how to determine, how do they know?
That's a tough one.
It is.
That's a tough one. It's a tough one because, and that's a lot of the reason, as we spoke about my transition off the court, is I'm kind of like, y'all can have this, because now, because it's the new hot thing, everybody that ever played JV basketball is riding around with 8 basketballs in their trunk talking about, I'm a trainer now.
Exactly.
And not saying in any way, shape, or form that you have to have a certain playing pedigree to be a good coach or a good trainer. But it's saturated, and it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out that it's saturated. And so John Lucas told us this one time. He said, basketball is the only sport, and think about this, basketball is the only sport where you can have your average couch potato, sit on the couch, watch a game, and say, I can do that.
No doubt.
Like nobody's looking at the NFL game saying I can throw a football like Tom Brady or nobody's doing that. Nobody's hitting the golf ball saying I can hit a golf ball like Rory McIlroy or Tiger Woods. Nobody's doing that. But for whatever reason, they can look at basketball and they can say I can do that and I can teach that. And so, in terms of parents looking for the proper skill instructor, it's going to boil down to being comfortable first. First and foremost, you got to be comfortable. If it's somebody that you're not comfortable with their coaching style, or if you think you do have a certain, coaching pedigree, and I want him to that's hands down number one. Because at the end of the day, this person's dealing with your child. Mm-hmm. So you have to be comfortable with who's dealing with your child. Business model. My specific business model is I prefer smaller group sessions, a group of 3 to 6, or even a one-on-one session, depending on. But I prefer the smaller group model. You have coaches that, prefer the more team training where you got 12 to 15 kids on the court. I'm personally, that's not my choice because I want every kid to walk out feeling like it was an individual workout. And you can't do that with 15 kids. Because the minute I tell little Johnny to get lower in his defensive stance and I turn my head to go talk to Bobby, Johnny comes out of his stance and he's not getting any better anyway. So I'm a fan of that. So there's a lot. At the end of the day, I would definitely tell parents to shy away from and probably run away from anyone who promises that they're going to get your child to a certain level. Like I can get you, they work with me, I can get them to go to Florida State. That's absurd. And I got coaches that coach from junior college all the way up to high major Division I, and none of them am I going to say, hey man, I got an 8th grader that I'm gonna send to you, and it just does not work like that. So for sure, anybody that's telling you they can get your kid to a certain place, or, again, being in my world with Nike, anybody that's running to a parent and running to you offering product or something like that. I mean, we're in this world where kids are kids. Yep. And shoes are shoes. And so like everybody's a sneakerhead now. And yeah, that's where the game has really gotten distorted is that. And then lastly, any adult that will talk to your kid first, I would ultimately close the door. I got nothing to say to you. There's no reason me as a 39-year-old adult male, my first point of contact should be a 16-year-old kid. That's not the way it works. And so, but that's what you have happening. So I would definitely say that to a parent is, they should have enough respect. Or even if that's the first contact, like if there's no other scenario, right, you have to talk to this kid. Hey, how are you? I'm Coach Jay. Hey, where's your parents? Exactly. You know what I mean? Or here's my information. Give it to your parents. Not having the direct dialogue with the kid. Can't happen.
What it sounds like I hear you saying is that parents need to create some boundaries early.
For sure.
If you that your child has the potential, legitimate potential, to play Division I or college athletics, it's important that they set the tone with some type of boundaries that protects their child, because ultimately their child is their responsibility, not coach's responsibility, and that they're creating an opportunity to teach their kid how to behave professionally.
Absolutely.
With adults.
Absolutely. It's amazing that you use the word boundaries. I use the word buffer. So parents used to be the buffer. Parents used to be the, you got somebody that's in my position. You got a skill development coach that's saying, like, I would like to work with your kid and I can get your kid to Florida State. The parent used to say, yeah, okay, but, we're going to keep going this way. But nowadays, when you pass that information on, it's the parent probably living into the dream more than the kid. And it's like, oh, Coach Jay said he can get you to Florida State. That's what, and even with coaches and discipline, like parents used to be you better go ahead on and listen to your coach. You know, whatever. Well, okay, so what? He yelled at you. And now it's the reverse. It's kids going home telling the parent that the coach yelled at me, and now the parent's going running up to practice yelling at the coach for yelling at the kid. It's like, so for sure, parents have to understand, and we all want, it's the goal of every generation to do better than the previous generation. We all want to give our kids things that we didn't have and have them not, but you got to also think like where you are now is a product of what you've been through.
Yeah.
So the more you think you are protecting them and not exposing them to some of the things that you were exposed to, just think how that's going to change their life, you know, as they progress forward. And so it's tough. Being a parent is tough.
Yeah. It seems like a tough job. Parents out there. You know, it's not easy, Jayson, for parents to decide where to send their kid and who they should play with. But at the end of the day, the kid has to want it. So it doesn't matter how many skill development sessions you send them to, how many pair of KDs you buy them, how many sleeves and ankle bracelets, like none of that stuff. We play with mesh jerseys in a room without heat, and we put in work.
Yeah.
And nothing can supplement work. You can drink all the protein shakes, like you can watch all the videos, but if kids aren't willing to put in that work, then they're not gonna be able to achieve at that level.
Yeah.
There's something else. And you know, let me backtrack. And even if you put in work, it doesn't guarantee that you're gonna get to that level.
It does not.
Hard work. I tell kids this when I talk to them all the time. Hard work doesn't guarantee you anything other than an opportunity to have a chance to potentially get what you want. But it doesn't guarantee that you get what you want. We know, and we've read the stat a million times, that only 1% of high school athletes actually play Division I sports.
Yeah.
What's your advice to that 99%?
Learn to live life. So again, a huge part of what I do, even through basketball skills, because a lot of the stuff that I do is applicable off court as well. And I don't want to say basketball trainer because that limits me to being on the basketball court. But a lot of what I do is helping young people. I'm passionate about the game of basketball, and that's my love right now or whatever. But I'm good at math, you know, so how do I, and that's actually one of the titles to one of my speeches is how to become an athletic professional instead of a professional athlete. So, so kids are caught up into, and it's natural. Again, we were the same way. Kids are caught up into one avenue, playing.
Yep.
Playing. And it doesn't matter whether it's football, basketball, soccer, lacrosse, whatever, playing. But to help a young player understand that's probably not going to be the avenue that's going to get you where you want to go, but you can still love that life, live that life, but also do something that you're good at. So you're good at math, you love basketball. Well, as we learn basketball, let's figure out what we need to do to explore becoming the financial guy for the Atlanta Hawks or the, you know, whoever. You know, let's explore that option, or anything. You know what I mean? I'm one of the things that I'm really interested in now is the whole manager thing. Like I think back, like the best managers played at some point, maybe weren't good enough to make it. And I just listened to a podcast. I listen to Hardwood Hustle all the time. My guys, Alan and Adam. And they just had two guys on there. Both of them were managers. One is the head coach at a high school. Now the other one's the AD. And they were managers at South Carolina. And they're sitting there talking about, you know, flying and going to every SEC venue and going to Maui to play their senior year. And like they're managers. And so for a kid, that you're going to have to swallow your ego.
Exactly.
But you, like being a manager at a Division I school, you're on the team. You live the life. You do everything that the kids do. You just don't run up and down the court. So I try my best to help young people understand that the playing avenue is such a small avenue, and there's so much more Like, and even if playing becomes the avenue, it's still gonna stop.
Exactly.
I was 33, 34 when I retired, which in basketball years, I played over 25 years. But in life years, I'm not even halfway done yet, hopefully. so, you have to know. But again, they have to be shown that. They can't just be told that. And I specifically, when I started to understand money, that was one of the things that really stood out to me was there was always somebody saying, do right with your money. I hope you're saving your money. I hope you're doing this with your money. What the hell? What does that mean? I'm sorry.
It's
What,
okay. Yeah.
like if you don't know what that means,
Yep.
because I was doing what I thought was right with my money. I didn't have 18 cars and 14 houses and
Sure.
$200,000 worth of jewelry on my neck, and I had savings and mutual funds and all of that stuff. So I thought I was doing right. But if you don't understand money, all that goes for naught. And so you have to be shown. You can't just tell them, especially with this kid.
No, you're absolutely right. Man, I grew up inner city St. Louis. Parents were amazing, very blue collar. And
Yep.
similarly, you're told so much about sport. I remember being a senior in college, and my only thought was like, I'm going pro. Like I'm going to the WNBA, like, and that's
Yep.
it. And my coach said to me, have you ever thought about being a ref? Because refs, you still travel and
You
there's,
still love the game. That's all, yeah.
and I was like,
Gotta
and
let the ego go. Gotta
ugly.
let the ego go.
Right. Because you've been doing, like you said, you've been playing since seventh grade, sixth grade,
Yeah.
fifth grade, depending. And now you're at the supposed end of it. Like,
Yeah.
and no one can tell you.
Yeah.
The last thing I want to talk about is keeping in line with this point is renegotiating your identity around not being this athlete anymore. I remember when I stopped playing ball, and I'm 6'1", and so
Okay.
people will always,
Footer.
yeah, people,
We got a footer.
people would always come up to me and say, do you hoop? And I'd be like, yeah, of course.
Right.
I mean,
Right.
yeah, of course I play. And they say, who do you play for? Then I
Right.
create a team. Like, no, Angie, you don't play. Like, your
Right.
career is done, baby girl.
Right.
Give it up. But it's so hard to let that go. You talk about your experience with shifting from being a pro ball player to creating this new identity, and some advice for some ball players out there who are in the midst of this.
I think you've been in my closet or in my book bag or something for the last 2 weeks. Cause no exaggeration, just had this conversation. Today's Tuesday. So Sunday I went to lunch with my cousin and I told her then, I said, while I was playing, you always get, like, I'm 6'8", so you get the stares and and for me, it's stares cause he's tall, stares cause he's good looking. No, I'm
Right.
joking. But then it's also like that immediate, who is that? So now it's I'm trying to figure out, who is he? Should I know him? Do I know him? And so now you got like a three
Trifecta.
pronged stare happening. But while I was playing, I felt like, sometimes you just want to just walk and be you, but in most cases it was like, okay, yeah, I know they're trying to figure out who I am or whatever. But now, since I've been retired, I feel like the staring bothers me more.
Yep.
Because I'm not playing. Like, I just want to just be normal. Like, I just want to be, and so I got all these already preconceived responses to what people say, because they don't even ask me, do I play? They just skip straight to who you play for. And and I still look young, and so they don't know that I'm almost 40 years old. And so it's like, oh, well, you do this and you do this. So I tell them I'm a horse jockey, or I tell them all kind of, like, because if I walked up to you and you're short and I said, oh, are you a gymnast?
Right.
Like, that's offensive. Like, tall people can't say what, like, short people can say whatever they want to say to tall people, but we can't say the same without them being offended. But the transition, my transition has been awesome. Not smooth. I mean, there's for sure that adjustment. I worked corporate for almost a year. when I first retired, and it was a great experience. It helped me learn that this is not what I want to do every day is wake up and go to somebody's job that I don't like doing. But I learned a heck of a lot. And then mine has been a blessing because I've basically been able to stay involved in the game without playing the game. And in all reality, I've probably had more fun, or at least just as much fun not playing as I did playing. And it's been 5 years this month. I said I gave it up to January 2011. And yeah, but you have to still be coached. Everything is going to revolve back to being coached and shown and all of those. And my life is kind of, I say it's amazing, but in actuality it probably wasn't, because I learned my stuff was trial and error.
Yep.
With a whole bunch of error. I didn't necessarily have anybody telling me how to do it, or that here's how I did it, and maybe you want to do it. And I have this conversation. I'm going through it right now with one of my guys that plays football. He's finishing up in the NFL. And it went from, he's never been a superstar. He's always been, make the team, but he plays special teams. He may play a specialty down or something like that. But you go from making the team for your first 8 years to, now you don't make the team before the team, but somebody picks you up. And now you go from somebody picks you up 2 weeks after the season to somebody picks you up 8 weeks after this. And I'm telling them, like, bro, they're telling you
right,
it's about that time. So instead of waiting for that time, let's talk about it. Let's talk about what you're going to do after basketball. I mean, this guy's 32 years old, and literally his answer to what you're going to do after football is, I don't know. And yeah, exactly.
You know what's crazy, Jayson? As we wrap up, what's crazy to me is that there have been so many athletes who've gone through this process since professional athletics has begun. Every year there's a crop that transition, but we still have this tremendous problem with understanding how to transition. Like, enough of us talk about the struggles and the challenge and offer advice, but more importantly, mentoring. You made the most important point, I think, today is for athletes who are in the midst of transitioning, you need to go get another coach.
Yeah.
We were 6, 7, 8, whenever we started playing this game, and then we leave the game voluntarily or involuntarily.
Yeah.
And now we're wondering without a coach. So get coach, get a professional coach, get an executive coach, maybe go back to school and get some more education to get some coaching. Be a part of leadership groups. Like, we have to find a way to continue growing mentally and stay healthy physically, so that we don't feel that we've completely are just out there and lost, because we still have to give. When you go through the grind of what you've gone through, you have a lot of wisdom and experience to offer. And
I think that's a part of it. I was told this. It's funny when I tell this story. His name is Dirk. He's a German guy, and his name is Dirk, ironically, but not that Dirk. But he told me this, and he just told me this maybe a year ago, and I definitely never thought of it, how he worded it. But since he's told me and worded it to me like this, I've really started to dissect it a little bit. And his original attraction to me was, he said, Jayson, you have 3 rare qualities. You possess 3 qualities that not a lot of people possess, all 3 of them. You have experience, you have a skill set to be able to relay that experience, and you got a passion to do it. Some people have 1 out of the 3. Fewer people may have 2 out of the 3, but very few have all 3. And my circle is Jamal and Mike, and we got WNBA girls, and we got, all kind of stuff to where you're now clearly in this same. And I think where we get caught up is because the people that are in our immediate circle possess those 3 qualities. Yeah. I think we get this misconception that there's more of us than there really are, and there's not. There's not. I mean, you got players that have played for 10, 15 years that may have the experience, may even have the skill set, but they don't have the passion to do. That's not what they want to do.
Right.
Or, they may have the experience and the passion, but they can't put together a sentence and everything is still ending with a double ED at the end. So, so yeah, I think it's huge for us, and I totally applaud what you're doing because it's another avenue I'm actually going to start to explore as part of the speaking and writing. I want to do video blogs. Like, I don't want to do a written blog, but I want to do a vlog. And it's just, I think the more of us that are presenting ourselves and exposing our vulnerabilities and talking to athletes as they go through, I think it's just going to be, and they got to be able to receive it as well. I mean, you think back and you may not necessarily wanted to hear everything somebody was saying either.
You couldn't tell me a thing, Jayson. Nothing.
Yeah. So, where I'm at with that is I treat it like tithing at church. It's like, once you tithe, once you put that money in the basket or the bucket or the crate or wherever you put it, for me, it's out of my hands. I gave from my heart. Sure. What the pastor decides to do with it, if he decides to pay his car note or his house note instead of putting it to the church, that is between him and God. I gave from my heart. And I know that's a wild example, but it's kind of the same. It's like, I'm going to pass on this information. I'm doing you an injustice if I don't pass on this information. So I'm going to hold my end up and I'm going to pass on the information. And if you're not open to it, or it just might not hit you. It might not hit you at 20. It might hit you at 26. Like, oh, dang, that's what Coach Jay was talking about. That's fine with me too. But my injustice to you would be if I don't even tell you. So exactly. I'm cool with that.
Else, that is the perfect closure to this podcast today. Thank you so much for the interview. If people have heard something that you've said and they want to get in contact with you and want to learn more about what you're doing, want you to come speak to their kids, what is the way that they can reach you?
My social networking or social network handles, Instagram is Jayson.Wells, and you can blame my mama as a Y in Jayson, so JAYSON. .WELLS is Instagram, and Twitter is Jayson Wells _, no dot, but there's an underscore at the end. So just my whole name _ forewarning. Those are the two biggest social networks that I use. And my Instagram, you go to my Instagram, you can be prepared to receive what I call cornball happiness and positivity. Like, my Instagram is like positive paradise. It is.
People need that though. We need more of that. What about email? What if people want to just contact you directly?
So it's my email is coachjay, JAY, at My Shooting Starz, just like it sounds, except there's a Z at the end. So coachjay at myshootingstars.com.
Perfect. If you are listening, you definitely need to reach out to Jayson Wells, learn from his experience, have him come speak to your kids. He has a wealth of knowledge, both basketball here nationally and internationally. Thank you so much, Jayson.
You're welcome.
Thank you for listening to the Athletes as Educators podcast. Be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and listen in every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday to hear how current and former elite athletes are changing the game.